So look, I knew it was going to be bad, but the Privileges Committee kangaroo court attempting to finish off Boris Johnson's political career was even more crooked, biased and corrupt than I thought was possible. Having read 52 pages of careful and considered evidence from the former Prime Minister yesterday, it is blatantly obvious that he neither knowingly or recklessly misled Parliament. That's what the committee was meant to be investigating today, not the horrific and inhumane COVID rules that you know I campaigned against throughout the lockdowns. But the anger that many now feel about the revolting guidance and laws forced upon us in 2020 should not be conflated with an anti-democratic campaign to end the political career of Boris Johnson by the Westminster establishment, because that threatens to undermine British democracy itself. In the rare moments he was allowed, that was a point Boris himself attempted to hammer home.
Everyone knows that there are some features of this proceeding that are extremely peculiar. I have the utmost respect for you, the Chair, but you have said some things about this matter before reading the evidence, which are plainly and wrongly prejudicial. The best and fairest course now would be for the committee to publish all the evidence it has assembled. Despite my repeated requests, the committee has refused to do this. As investigator, prosecutor, judge and jury, it has elected only to publish the evidence which it considers incriminating and not the evidence which I rely on and which answers the charges. That was not a party. I was there to...
I haven't said it was a party, Mr. Johnson.
Well, you did actually earlier on. People who say that we were partying in lockdown simply do not know what they are talking about. I did not wittingly or recklessly mislead Parliament. There's not a shred of evidence to suggest that I did. And I hope that you will exonerate me, and I think you should exonerate me, of any contempt whatever.
I mean, look, they absolutely should. But this Boris-hating committee had made up its mind long before they heard a scrap of evidence. The Labour chairwoman, Harriet Harman, who had already publicly declared her damning verdict against Boris, wants to see him booted from Parliament as the final act in her political career. Now, remember, Boris remains the politician her party's fear has the ability to beat Slippery Starmer at the next election. And during 3 hours and 15 minutes of torturous evidence, the committee made clear they only had the public destruction of Boris in mind.
I have to say, if I was accused of law-breaking and I had to give undertakings to the House of Commons, of all places, I would want the advice of a lawyer. It must have been, yes, obvious to you at the time, and even more obvious on reflection afterwards, as this whole thing broke around you, that it was in breach of workplace guidance relating to social distancing.
Would it not have been obvious to you that the event was in breach of the guidance?
Are you not naming these officials who you say were giving you these assurances because you can't remember who they were?
There has been a concerted effort to delegitimise the committee, to call us a kangaroo court. Have you characterised us as a kangaroo court?
If you look at what Sue Gray has to say.
But we're not relying on Sue Gray's evidence, isn't that ironic?
Let me be clear. Even if you despise Boris Johnson and hope he never returns to number 10, this committee must not be allowed to drive him out of office. In an unprecedented move, they have redefined their definitions and thrown out any legal precedents in a bid to claim he recklessly misled Parliament. What on earth does that mean? We're still no clearer after today. And do we really want to exist in a system where Prime Ministers can no longer answer questions in the House of Commons, relying on advice from top officials and public servants, without fearing being booted from public life altogether? I've also got to remind you that Boris commissioned the Partygate inquiry himself once he realised he had been misled, and then he corrected the record in Parliament once its findings were released. That report's author, Sue Gray, is now going to become Starmer's chief of staff. You couldn't make this stuff up, folks. The deep state stitch-up of Boris Johnson could actually have deep ramifications for our political system. After today, it seems almost inevitable to me that this committee is determined to find him guilty, despite failing to produce any smoking gun whatsoever. And at that point, it will be up to all Conservative politicians, even you, Rishi Sunak, even you, to do the right thing for the good of British democracy. The stakes could not be higher.